We are in 1 Samuel chapter 27. The title of today's message is Desperate Times. In 1835, a man visited a doctor in Florence, Italy. He was filled with anxiety and exhausted from lack of sleep. Can anybody relate to that? AJ, yeah. He couldn't eat. He avoided his friends. The doctor examined him and found that he was in prime physical condition. Concluding that his patient needed to have a good time, the physician told him about a circus in town and its star performer, a clown named Grimaldi. Night after night, he had the people rolling in the aisles. "You must go see him," the doctor advised. "Grimaldi's the funniest clown. He'll make you laugh and cure your sadness." "No," replied the despairing man, "he can't help me. You see, I am Grimaldi." Have you ever been in a place in your life where you think that nobody can help you? You feel so all alone with your thoughts and your worries, your anxieties. Even though there's lots of people around who all seem to be fine, you're the one that struggles. Sometimes these moments occur on the heels of significant events in your life. Today, as we begin chapter 27, we're going to see David in a new light. Last week in chapter 26, we saw the final showdown between Saul and David, even though neither one of them probably knew it at that time, especially David. David probably wondered if he got too close too many times, and the next time Saul really was going to get him. Where else can he go? What else can he do? He's been running for about 10 years now. The priests have all died. Saul killed them. The wilderness has been used, and he can't go back home. And now he waits for Saul to finally kill him. What would you do? Sometimes we get so caught up in the what ifs of life, and the what should I do's, and the where should I go's, and the who can help me, who can I talk to, and you just feel so alone, so desperate. Today we're going to see David's desperation. What is this guy going to do? God wants you to see David's desperation. In verses 1 through 4 of chapter 27, we see David's desire is going to lead to depression. Secondly, verses 5 through 12, we're going to see David's deeds, how it leads to destruction. And then third, chapter 28, verses 1 and 2. Yes, we're finally going to bleed into another chapter. David's dilemma leads to desperation. In this message entitled Desperate Times. What is David going to do? He is a desperate man. He's on the run. He believes Saul's going to kill him. He just had this other encounter. What is he going to do? Let's read verses 1 through 4 and figure out what is David going to do. David said in his heart, "Now I shall perish someday by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape to the land of the Philistines. And Saul will despair of me to seek me any more in my part of Israel, so I shall escape out of his hand." Then David arose and went over with the 600 men who were with him to Achish, the son of Maach, king of Gath. So David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, each man with his household, and David with his 2 wives, Ahinoam, the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, the Carmelitess, Nabal's widow. And it was told Saul that David had fled to Gath, so he sought him no more. Over the last several weeks, as Saul has been running and running and running from Saul, you remember this is probably sometime between 7 and 10 years worth of running. Back in chapter 21, there was the deception. You remember that with the priests? In chapter 22, there was a decay as a result of that deception, and he had to face the consequences. And then in chapter 23, there's a defense from the Lord. Chapter 24, decisions were made, and David had to make some choices. Chapter 25, disaster nearly strikes. In chapter 26, last week, destiny was realized. Saul finally got it. And now, chapter 27, desperation is seen. David is at his wit's end. This has been a lot of years, a lot of running, a lot of issues, a lot of problems for a long time. Here's my question for you, especially the ladies. You ever dwell on anything? I bet you do. We as people are good at a few things. We're good at making excuses. We're good at blame shifting. We're good at excusing our own behavior and not excusing anybody else's. We're good at these things. You know what else we're really good at as people? We are fantastic at dwelling on problems. We are. We really are. We're really good at dwelling on them. And I'm so glad that Shirley read to us today from the book of Matthew. And Jesus tells us, do not worry about what is going on. God can clothe the birds of the air. He can feed you. He can do all this sort of stuff with you. Don't worry about anything else. Today has its own issues. Don't worry about stuff. And you know what David's going to do on the run from Saul? He's going to worry about it. He's going to despair about this. And he's going to dwell on all of these issues. And he's going to just, woe is me. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Who could possibly help me? And I suspect that every one of us at some point in our lives, probably some more recently than others, all of us have dwelt on something that God did not want us to dwell on. Some sort of problem, some sort of medical issue, a loss of a job, your spouse is doing something weird and you're dwelling on what's going on there. You got all these issues swirling around. Maybe you got a piece of mail and you just don't want to open it. And so you just leave it on the counter. And there it sits. And it's on the counter. And you don't want to open it because you don't know what it's going to say. So there it sits. And the next day it's still there and it's looking you right in the face. And you don't open it. And it just goes on like this. And it keeps going. And it keeps going. And the days turn into weeks, and the weeks turn into months. And that letter is still on the counter. The issues are still alive in your world. Things are still compounding in your mind. And you're still dwelling on all this stuff. Have you ever noticed that we don't dwell on good things? We get a promotion or a raise at work, and we go out for supper that night, and the next day, we're complaining that we don't make enough. But the bad things, boy, we're on that for weeks and months at a time. Boy, we're like a dog that just doesn't let go. But the good things, we hear a good message at church and we're like, boy, that was a good one today. And by Tuesday, if I ask you what it was about, you have no idea. Tell me I'm wrong. But boy, if the pastor said something really bad one day, he's an idiot for the rest of his life. Tell me I'm wrong. This is how this works. We dwell on the negative stuff and we just won't let it go. That's why in Philippians we're told to not dwell on those bad things. Let things go. Do not have this anxiety. It is not good for you. In fact, you're supposed to be dwelling on things that are good, lovely, of good report, this sort of stuff. Because that's the cure for the negative stuff. You have to be told to dwell on the good stuff. And what is David doing here? Dwelling on the bad stuff. Ding, ding, ding. And you just want to slap him and say, David, bud, Saul's not going to chase you anymore. Give it up, man. He's done. It's over. You know, you could probably go back home. But that's not what he's going to do because he's going to dwell on the bad stuff. So maybe here's my clarion call. You know, mental health is important. It really, truly is. I tell this to people at work all the time. Your mental health is just as important as the hours on your schedule. Because if you're not doing well, those hours on the schedule ain't going to do neither one of us a bit of good. You got to be in a good place. How do I help you be in a good place? Now, what's tough is at work because I can't, I can tell them about Jesus, but if they don't know Jesus, that's an uphill battle. But you guys, on the other hand, if you know Jesus and you're having a mental health day, let's talk. It's okay. Satan is out to get you. I already know that. You're a sinner. I already know that. We can talk about these things and what's going on. Maybe you did something you shouldn't have done. Let's talk about it. Let's go open that piece of mail on your counter. I'll open it for you. I'll see what's inside of there. It's probably nothing. And you're like, yeah, it probably is nothing. It probably is nothing. Most of this stuff is nothing. David, Saul's not trying to get you anymore. This is nothing. And you know what he's going to do? He's going to do something he's already done. He's going to go down to Gath. He's going to go down and hang with Achish. He's already done this once. And how well did that go over? Remember that? He had to act like a crazy person. He had to pretend to get the saliva down into his beard and act like a crazy person. How well did this work out for you last time, my guy? And you're going to try this again? But he's probably banking on the fact that 7 or 10 years later now, Achish is probably going to think that him and Saul actually are these mortal enemies. And Saul has driven him out of Israel. And Achish is probably wondering, did I just win the jackpot? I now have the heir apparent to the throne of Israel in my pocket because Saul has driven him out, and Saul's going to kill him if he ever goes back. This David guy is mine now. So Achish probably thinks that he's going to win the lottery. And David is going down there. I don't know. Is this a good decision or not? When you're struggling with this and you're facing this kind of desire, and he's really having some cloudy judgment here. Is this depressive thoughts and stuff? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But, man, it makes me wonder, is he just feeling bad for himself? Because this sounds like somebody that's a woe is me kind of thing. Is he tail spinning a little bit here? I don't know. Sure seems like it. But he is wondering. And he is going to an extreme to solve a problem that in reality doesn't exist. Boy, if that doesn't sound like me sometimes, it's a little wild. Going to an extreme to solve a problem that doesn't exist. Tell me you've never done that before. But this is what happens. So David arose, went with 600 men to Achish. And David dwelt there with the families of all these people. And interestingly enough, he seeks him no more. This really is the end of David and Saul. David's desperate. David is going to an extreme to solve a problem that doesn't exist. His desire is leading to this depression, and it's not good for him. It's not good for anybody involved. And these 600 guys are probably thinking, why are we going down to Gath and King Achish? What in the world, David? There's got to be a better solution here, but they're going to go anyway. And so now David, when you start to make a decision like this, to keep this thing alive, you have to perpetuate this narrative. He cannot tell Achish that he's on Achish's side and then just kind of chill for the next period of time. He's got to do something to demonstrate that he's all in with Achish. What's he going to do? Verses 5 through 12. David said to Achish, if I have found favor in your eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country that I may dwell there. For why should your servant dwell in the royal city with you? So Achish gave him Ziklag that day. Therefore Ziklag has belonged to the kings of Judah to this day. Now, the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was 1 year and 4 months. David and his men went up and raided the Gershites, the Girzites, the Amalekites, for these nations were the inhabitants of the land of old, as you go to Shur, even as far as the land of Egypt. Whenever David attacked the land, he left neither man nor woman alive, but took away the sheep, the oxen, the donkeys, the camel, the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. Then Achish would say, where have you made a raid today? David would say, against the southern area of Judah, or against the southern area of the Jerahmeelites, or against the southern area of the Kenites. David would save neither man nor woman alive to bring news to Gath, saying, lest they should inform on us, saying, thus David did. And thus was his behavior all the time that he dwelt in the country of the Philistines. So Achish believed David, saying, he has made his people Israel utterly abhor him. Therefore he will be my servant forever. So what are David's deeds? He's going to live there for 1 year and 4 months, it says. So for 1 year and 4 months, he has to somehow convince Achish that he's a defector. What are his deeds going to be? How does he convince Achish that he's a defector? Well, Achish wants him to go up and fight against Israel, the mortal enemy. As you remember, David and Goliath, mortal enemies with the Philistines. These Philistines are a thorn in the side of Israel for a very long time. And so Achish would love it if David would go up and fight against Israel. He's got this secret agent here. So what's David going to do? Is David really going to go fight against Israel? He's got himself a bit of a problem here. So he decides, in order to cover up this scenario, he's going to go attack some of these other places. And I can't pronounce them. I hope I did a good. Did I do a good job? Super. I knew I nailed them, every one of them. I think I missed mosquito bites in here somewhere, I think, but I did. Yep, it's right in here. Verse 8, it's mosquito bites. So David's going to go up and raid these other nations, the mosquito bites, the Amalekites, the Girzites, and whoever, these other inhabitants of the land. He's going to go and raid them. And he's going to get spoiled. He's going to kill all the people. And you may think to yourself, David is so dastardly. Why is this guy killing all the inhabitants of these lands? Certainly he should leave somebody alive. He's not that bad of a guy, is he? But it tells us at the end, why does David kill all of the inhabitants of these places that he's raiding? It's because if he were, let's say he leaves one dude alive, he's afraid that one dude is going to run to Achish and say, I'm a mosquito bite. And Achish is going to go, wait a second, he told me that he just got done raiding Judah. And this guy says that he's from the mosquito bites. Wait just a minute. David to the office, please. I got a guy here that says he's from the mosquito bite tribe. And you just got done telling me that you went and sacked Judah. You want to explain yourself, bud? But if he kills all of them, then he doesn't have anything like that. He's not trying to be super cruel. He's trying to save his hide. Okay, not that I like that, but I understand where he's coming from. So he kills all the inhabitants. He collects all the spoil. And these deeds are very destructive. I mean, he's going out and he's raiding a lot of people. This is going on for 16 months. Now, I'm not saying he's going out every day, but he's going out more than a couple times. I mean, we got 3 or 4 listed here of different nations, and you know there's got to be more than that. This guy is being quite destructive here. In order to continue to perpetuate this desire, this depressive desire of his, thinking that Saul's going to kill him, has led him to go down to the Philistines to be with Achish, and to perpetuate this nonsense, now he's got to go out and start killing and raiding some of these surrounding people groups to allow Achish to believe that he actually is this defector. David, bud, what are you doing? But this is what he's doing. What is God teaching David in the midst of all of this? You know, one of the criteria of being a king is being able to lead soldiers in battle. This is one of the things that Samuel warned the people before Saul was even announced. Seems to me like for these 16 months, although I'm not super convinced that God is excited about his deception, I do wonder, is God using this opportunity to train David on how to lead these 600 men into battle so that when he becomes the actual king and has more than 600 men at his disposal, he will be an effective military leader for God when that time comes? What do you say? Did you know that even when you go and do things that are maybe questionable, like I'm not convinced that going down to the Philistines with Achish was like the right answer. But even in a scenario or a situation like that, when you're doing something that's like, I'm not sure if that's the right answer or not, God is still able to teach, to guide, to instruct, to instill, and to mold, and to guide you even in those times. Because for many of us, we may not have this, do I go down to the Philistines, do I hook up with Achish or not? We may not have some of this stuff, but we do still have a lot of questions that we want answers for, and we try to figure out, what does God want me to do? I talk to young people all the time. Should I go to this college, or should I go to this college? What does God want me to do? And you know what I say? I think God can bless you at either one. Maybe there is a college that God really does want you to go to A. I don't know. I don't have the mind of God. I am clearly outclassed on that one. But the point is, God can bless on either one. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, should I buy this house or should I buy this house? I don't know. But I bet you that God can bless either one. Should I buy this car or should I buy this car? I don't know. But I bet you God can bless you either way. Should I do this or should I do that? What about this job? Should I get this job? Should I quit and do that? Should I do this or should I do that? Should I go here or should I go there? I don't know. But what I do know is that no matter where you're at, no matter what you're doing, God can teach you, train you, mold you, guide you to teach you what he wants you to know, no matter where you're at. You can never be too far gone for God to say, you know what, I just don't know if I can deal with him anymore. David, you should have never gone to the Philistines. I'm done until you come back to Israel, bud. That's not how God works. God is teaching him, training him, molding him to be the king, even down in the Philistines, even down doing this sort of stuff, even with his desires and his desperation and the destruction and the depression and all the stuff that's going on, God is able to teach him even in those moments. You are never too far gone for God to be done with you. Because sometimes we feel like that. You ever feel like you've done something or gone too far or said something you shouldn't have said? Now you're the big dummy and I don't even know if I can talk to them anymore. Let me tell you, you can. God is able to redeem all those situations, all those things. God can do the miraculous in and through you no matter where you're at. It's not a question of whether or not God can bless you in different places. The question is, are you going to be faithful to learn and do what God is trying to teach you to learn and do? I'm not even sure David realized at this point that God is teaching him and training him on how to run an army for the next 16 months. He was just trying to appease Achish. But in the doing is learning and teaching and guiding and molding and training, which is what God is trying to do with all of us, no matter if you work at Fairway or even, what's the one that starts with H? That's what it is, yep. Even there, God can teach you and mold you and train you to do what he wants you to do. It does not matter. Well, it kind of matters a little bit, but it doesn't really matter a whole lot. So was David successful in spite of having these dark thoughts, in spite of these deeds leading to this destruction? Was David successful in convincing Achish that he really was this double agent? Verse 12, Achish believed David. He has made his people Israel utterly abhor him. Therefore, he's going to be my servant forever. Well, David, you failed that task successfully. So well done, David. Because now he's got a dilemma on his hands. Verses 1 and 2 of chapter 28. Now it happened in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for war to fight with Israel. And Achish said to David, "You assuredly know that you will go out with me to battle, you and your men." So David said to Achish, "Surely you know what your servant can do." And Achish said to David, "Therefore I will make you one of my chief guardians forever." There's a dilemma. His desire led to these deeds, which is now leading to this dilemma. His desperation has brought him to this desperate time. What is he going to do now? Because before, when it was just him and his men for those, most of that time, he could go out into the mosquito bites, kill all the inhabitants, bring back the sheep and say, "Look what I've done and how awesome I am." What happens when Achish is the one going out into battle and he expects David to be right there with him as they go and fight Israel? Now what's David going to do? What is David going to do? How do you get out of this one, David? You can lie, cheat, and steal your way out before, as good, bad, or right or wrong as it was. He made it work. Bless his heart. But now, what is he going to do? Because Achish is getting ready to go to war with Israel. Achish says to David, "You know you're going to go out with me into battle, you and your men." And what does David say? Well, David's so good. He's so sneaky. He's such the politician. "Surely you know what your servant can do." He didn't say, "I'm going with you," did he? He didn't say, "Oh, I'm going to get them all for you." He didn't say that. No. What did he say? "You know what I'm capable of." Very diplomatic. "Yes, I do know what you're capable of, David, but that really wasn't my question. I want you to go out into battle with me. And then, because I know what you can do, so I want you to go out into battle with me." But it was one of those answers that was good enough to make Achish go, "Okay." But now he's desperate. Because
Achish now wants him to go out into battle with him to fight against Israel, which he really has no intention of doing. None. Zero. There is no intention. He does not want to fight Israel. He doesn't want to kill his brethren. He knows that's not a good thing. He's never been willing to even harm Saul. He has no intention of fighting anybody from Israel. That was never the intended purpose. I'm not sure he ever realized that as he was thinking about going down to Philistines and hooking back up with Achish. I'm not sure he ever dreamed in his wildest dreams that Achish would want him to go with him to go up in battle against Israel. So now he's got quite a dilemma on his hands. What is he going to do? How is he going to get out of this? Is he going to end up having to go and fight with Israel? Is he going to have to kill some of his brethren? Is Achish going to do this? Or is Achish going to realize the plot and Achish is going to be the one that kills him? What's David going to do? And this is quite the dilemma that he finds himself in. Sometimes when you make decisions, when you feel in this kind of desperate time and your depressiveness starts to take hold of you and you start to make weird decisions and you start to do things that maybe you wouldn't normally do, you find yourself going down roads that you don't quite know how to get yourself out of. You ever been down roads like that? You said something you wish you wouldn't have said. You go somewhere you wish you wouldn't have gone. I bet you have. We all have those skeletons somewhere in these closets around here somewhere. Because you started making decisions from wrong feelings, from out of your emotion, and then you start to find yourself, oh boy. Boy, if Saul doesn't kill me, Achish is going to now. I can't run back home to Israel because Saul's going to kill me. I can't stay here because Achish is going to kill me. I'm in real trouble now. David, but what's he going to do? And the author of 1 Samuel is really awesome because, you know, when you're watching a show, like back in the day, back in like the 90s, and you're watching the show, and you'd have the cliffhanger episode because it was the end of season 3, and you had to wait all the way through summer to get to, season 4, episode 1 to figure out what happened after the cliffhanger. Whoever decided to do that in TV must have read 1 Samuel. You know why? Because as we get to the end of verse 2 in chapter 28, you want verse 3 to be the answer to this dilemma. How does David get out of this? You want chapter 28 to be all about how does David get out of this situation? What is going to happen? Is Achish just going to kill him? Is Saul going to find him? Is somebody else going to do this? What happens to David? Does he actually go out into battle with the Israelites? But what is chapter 28 about? Not that. Not that. You got to get through all of chapter 28 to figure out what's going to happen with David. So it's going to be 2 more weeks before we figure out what happened to David. But next week we've got a really interesting story that kind of almost makes you forget about what David's doing. Because it's going to be something else entirely different. But those are the desperate times that David finds himself in. And if you find yourself in some desperate times, no, you're not the only one. Let's pray.